Hey, this is Jeffrey Scott. Welcome to the show. We have a unique show for you today. Kristi Delima, who owns Snips Landscape in Ontario, Canada, believes in a clear vision for success. And she's going to tell us about how she was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer, breast cancer, but chose to fight it and used visualization and a positive mindset to kick the cancer's butt, to survive, to come through it. Really, it's an amazing story. And it has set her up to have a different view on business life, what her legacy will be. In this podcast, she'll tell us about how her employees stepped up, how her family stepped up. Also, her business has been through a couple transitions. And so you will learn about that as well. The business, she's owned it for 14 years. It's $1 million business, 12 employees, one location. And so a lot of heart that we're going to learn about here. I've known Kristi for a few years now. She's been a member of our peer groups. And if you're thinking about joining a peer group, now's the time. We have a special offer before the holidays. If you are on our email list, you'll know about that. The peer group's been a huge support for her, obviously through everything that happened and through helping her grow her business. And if you're looking for a support system, check us out at jeffreyscott.biz. Go to our services, go to the peer group page. And like I said, we have a holiday discount. But anytime you're listening to this and inspired and looking for an accountability group, then you have come to the right place here. All right, let's dive right in and hear Kristi's story. Hey, Kristi, welcome to the show.
Hi, I'm glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
It's been a little while, huh?
Yes, quite some time. Too long.
Too long, yeah. So tell the audience a little bit about you and your business.
So my name's Kristi Delima. I'm up here in beautiful Fenwick, Ontario, which we're about 30 minutes from Niagara Falls. So that's a popular place that people know, and we're lucky to be in such a beautiful area. I purchased a landscaping company that was already established about 14 years ago. And so we're a full service company where we do maintenance, snow removal, and design build as well.
Okay. And your husband works for you or not?
Yes, he works for me. I'm the sole owner of the business. And so he's my right arm, but he doesn't really want to have like the ownership title or anything like that. And he's happy where he is.
I remember when I visited you, I flew into, was it Buffalo, and then took a taxi
Yes.
through Niagara up to your place.
Yes.
That was fun. So you seem to do more than anybody else I know, or handle more, or I mean, you've got business issues and personal life issues and all your hobbies and your kids. So where do you want to start here? Do you want to talk about your most recent issue, and then we can kind of go back and talk about how you got up to that, or how do you want to kick this off?
Yeah, we might as well jump right into the whole recent, basically recent events, and then work backwards from there too. That works for me. So
Okay. Well, go ahead. Well, I'll let you start.
yeah. So in the end of last year, I found a lump on my breast, and so that's not a good thing. And so I basically called the doctor right away, got in, did some testing, and it took a while. We have free healthcare up here in Canada, but sometimes things don't happen as fast as they do down your way.
Yeah.
And so it took a little while, but I was diagnosed with breast cancer in February. And so it was, devastating, obviously, to get that news. And then with more testing and more results, we found out that it was stage 4 cancer. And so the likelihood of surviving that is less. And but I remembered sitting in the doctor's office that day and just saying, like, I've got too much life to live. I still have things that I want to do with my business. I'm not willing to take the answer of palliative care. I want to throw the book at cancer and, give it all the fight that I have. So
Yeah.
then from there, I, did as many treatments as, they could throw at me and, so on and so forth. I was supposed to get a double mastectomy in September. And so before that, my oncologist had been seeing the results from the chemo and everything that I've been doing, diet change, everything. And she said, "Do you have an appointment with your oncologist or your surgeon before your surgery?" And I said, "No." And she said, "Well, you might want to, because the scope of work might change. She might have more options for you now." Because when I first got diagnosed, it was going to be like, we're going to see if we can even do surgery on you. And so this was good news. And so I went and saw my surgeon a week before my surgery date. And the surgeon said, "Listen, you don't need to go that route anymore. We're going to just take away some of the calcification and some scar tissue. And we are going to basically, it's an easy surgery." So I had that in September. They did some biopsies on what they removed, and nothing was showing in my test results. So basically, my MRIs and my biopsies are all showing no more cancer anymore.
So how did you do that?
Lots of prayer. I had a lot of people praying for me. I had myself, and I just took that and said that, God gives you the desires of your heart. When I kept saying, the desires of my heart, I don't want to be away from my business for that long. Just even for the major surgery, I want to live. I want to see my children grow. And I just took that and rested on that every day, that he did the same thing with my brother. My brother actually had stage 4 non-Hodgkin's lymphoma on his brain. And so they had imported a port into his brain to do chemo and put the chemo right onto where the tumor was. And just before they went to do that, they did one more MRI and showed that the tumor had gone. And so then they didn't end up doing any treatment with him. So I just kind of said to God, "Well, you can't really play favorites. You did this for my brother. I know you can do this for me." And I just took that with me every day and chose joy every day. To wake up every day was a good day, even if it was like, I wasn't feeling well from the cancer treatments, but
Yeah.
that I had to be an example for my family and for my staff.
Well, that's quite an example. You have to be an example for yourself. I mean, hello. Uh, it's how many kids do you have? Tell us their ages.
Yeah, so I have 4 kids. The oldest is 18. Then I have a 17-year-old stepson, a 12-year-old boy, and a 9-year-old girl.
So how have they responded and reacted to all this?
They all had their own ways of kind of dealing with this, but we were very open with them right from the start. Like I had told them that mommy was going for testing and things like that. My husband was also sick back in like about 12 years ago. He had Crohn's and complications, so they were used to going in and out of hospitals with him. And
Yeah.
so we just kind of reminded them that like things are okay, and that we're going to do what the doctors tell us. And we had a good sense of humor about it too. Like I joke around with my kids all the time, and my kids know that it's okay to joke with me about things. So they've been pretty good about it.
And so how did your tell us how your employees responded before, during,
Yeah.
after?
So when I first told everybody the news, they were all quite shocked. But that's where like the girl that I had hired literally like
I'm
2 days.
sorry. You mean the bad news.
The bad news,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
The bad news, yes. They all were shocked, but the girl that I got the news on the phone and walked back into the office deflated. She said her mom had breast cancer twice. And so it was like the perfect timing to have somebody that like had gone through it as a family member. But then I was determined to just tell everybody that I wasn't ready to give up. I was going to fight. And then when I told them the good news, everybody was like celebrating, hugs everywhere. And yeah, it was good news.
So, Did you do like specific visualizations? Remember, I was talking to you about this podcast I listened to. I'll have to pull it up here. And this woman in this podcast uh, claims that she has science that really supports the whole your mental brain controls your health. And even well, I mean, I think we all sort of know that or half believe it, but there's a whole podcast on the science of that.
Mhm.
So clearly you're a believer in that and the proof of that. What any techniques that you can share with us that you did?
Well, I did spend a lot of time laying around waiting for tests, right? Like, if you have to go in for a CT scan, you're sitting there on the table, that kind of thing. And whenever I was in those situations, like in the MRI tube for a half an hour, I would just close my eyes and I would picture myself as very healthy, like not sick, not in the hospital, like never and every time I got those visions of myself in the hospital or sick, I would just shut that off and say, no, this is what you're going to look like. And I would just close my eyes and picture myself as the picture of optimum health and just visualizing like myself with my kids, like when they're older too, like, silly things like walking my daughter down the aisle as a bride, looking
Wow.
at positive things.
So you did the classic standard, if there is such a thing, standard visualization.
Yes.
Well, this is awesome. So, you, as a business, you've been through a lot. Even before this, the past couple of years, even on its own, that was kind of crazy. Um, so I've known you for how many years now? 5, 6,
I think yeah, maybe 6 or 7.
6 or
Yeah.
7, and then a few years in, you joined our peer group, and a few years in, there was one year where you posted the highest net profit of any client in all of our
Hmm.
peer groups.
Hmm.
I think it was like 26%. I'm going from memory here. But you've had a few ups and downs, and um, you want to share with me and share with the audience a bit of what you've had to plow through in the business side?
Yeah. So this year has actually been really well as a business, like considering everything I've gone through. But, post COVID, like right out of COVID, I ended up having to basically one person that was supposed to be a main person quit right in the spring heat of things. And it was one of those years where it was harder to find staff. And then I ended up having health problems within my company with like, one person had knee surgery, this person had melanoma, like there was so much happening. And so it left me with no choice but for me to be the person that was out in the field. And so I wasn't excited about that at first. Obviously, I wanted to be working on my business, not in it. But it ended up being a great summer. I learned so much about what was working outside. I learned what was not working inside with not me being in there. And so I learned a lot about the company. And I said, I'm not going to be going outside next year. That's not the way things are going to be. But I'm going to take what I learned and I'm going to like put it into action. And so I spent that winter doing that. And then going into that season, because I wasn't doing any of the sales, we had lost the big contract. So then that had left me with no choice but to lay off everybody.
Wait, hold on. How big of a contract?
It was like one of our main snow contracts, right?
Mm.
And so in the wintertime, it was where we pretty much had all hands on deck at it. And the previous year, I'd lost a few other contracts, and never had the chance to try to sell anything to win those that lost money back, right? So
When did you lay off everyone? What
it
month?
was this fall of 2022.
And how many people counts as everyone?
So it was like the bookkeeper got laid off, the estimator got laid off, and then all the staff. So it was probably 7 or 8 people all in total.
And so you were doing what revenue that year, or what should you have been doing that year?
I should have been up towards like the 1.4 million, right? And we had gone down to just under 1 million
Yeah.
that year. And
Okay.
so Yeah.
This is like a 4-part series. All right.
Yes.
So like a Netflix series.
Yes.
Sorry we gave away the ending, but
Yeah.
uh all right, so you lay everybody off, then what?
Yeah. So then I take on the role of everybody in the office for those winter months.
You're
And
killing
I
me here.
knew
Just listening.
I knew how to like do payroll. I knew how to create an invoice, but I didn't the whole in-depth thing, like all the day-to-day tasks of bookkeeping, I didn't have that, like bank reconciliations, all those types of things. So I had essentially had to learn how to do that winter.
Yeah.
And so another learning experience, but it ended up being amazing because then I was able to say, well, like, let's streamline lists, let's do this. And I created processes so that way, when I did either hire the staff members back or rehired, I had something set in place that it was fail proof because I had done it and I, completed it month after month and knew that this is the way I wanted things to be run.
So how long did you operate without anybody?
It was pretty much until the early spring until we actually started hiring back all of our field staff.
So
And
in Canada, that's like July, right? No, I'm kidding.
it was in May that I started hiring my field staff back.
And how many
April,
that you
May.
let go came back?
2. Well,
Okay.
I didn't lay Chris off. He was the only one I didn't lay off. He
Mm.
stuck by me. Yeah, so I had basically 2 come back.
Okay, so then what?
So then I ended up May 2-4 weekend, which is the big weekend here. It's Victoria Day weekend. That's the weekend in Canada that we plant all of our annuals out. Like here in Ontario, the risk of frost is gone. Our barn catches fire where we store equipment, etc., and it burns basically to the ground. So then, like, obviously that was devastating.
Wait, this happened the spring you were trying to hire everybody back.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So then that means that Kristi's job now entails being the estimator, the salesperson, still the bookkeeper, and also now dealing with insurance and new builds and etc. Right. So my time was very, very stretched.
Yeah.
But we survived through that year. We learned because we didn't have a storage area for some of our stuff and some of the stuff burnt, and we learned how to deal with less, which was nice. It was like doing the 5S thing, happened all in one weekend.
Yeah.
But then it ended up being our whole summer was every weekend we were cataloging what was there because we had to, for insurance claims, we had to prove like this was, the piece of equipment that was there or et cetera, and go through all the items and itemize them out, price them out. So every weekend was spent doing that. So I didn't have a lot of hobbies or free time that summer.
Mhm.
So that was last summer. And then from there,
Yeah. Well, hold on. So how many employees did you have that summer? How many did you hire back?
I only hired on 2. I never ended up hiring the bookkeeper or the estimator back.
And that was last year.
Yes.
And so what was your revenue last year?
Last year it was the lowest it's been since I took over, and that was 840,000.
And did you make money?
No. I did better on my profits, but it was still in the negative. So I was still doing better than I was the prior 2 years.
Hmm. Okay. So you've had a rough couple of years.
Yes. So then last winter, I, knew that I've got the system set in place. I know that one of my things now that I need to do is hire back. I need to hire a salesperson to help me with sales, right? I need to hire, someone to help out with estimating. And so that's what I ended up doing last winter. And then I got the diagnosis that I had cancer.
Yeah. So how has this year gone? How many staff did you have and how's it gone?
This year has actually been really well. I have about 9 staff. I think there's a couple part-time people, so I would say that payroll is at about 12 people, including myself. And our revenue, we've already beat the last 2 years. We're at 88% of our sales goal for the year, and that was at the end of September.
Mhm.
And we're showing a profit. and I'm not doing very much of the sales. I couldn't get out, like I was incapable of, sometimes getting out of bed, never mind promising that I would go meet potential clients. So,
Yeah.
um, so all of that prior work has, paid off, because when I hired the new people, I had goals, systems set in place. I had onboarding. And I hired for the position, not trying to like fit the person in the position. I hired the person that fit the position.
Okay. You're pretty good at systems, so as I recall, and so you must have enjoyed putting all those systems in place.
Yes. Yeah. It was fun. And it was fun to even like with the bookkeeping, be able to test it out myself, because in the past I'd never done that. So I was relying solely on somebody else to test things out. But because it was me, there was like I was willing to take different risks, as you could say, to try to get different things accomplished.
Yeah. Are you still a foster parent? I think you were doing that earlier.
Not anymore. That's a good story. I was a foster parent for a mother that had fallen into drugs, but in the end, she overcame her addiction, and so that has been a couple of years now. And so what we did was we slowly transitioned, and so the baby, after he was about a year old, every week my time with him would get smaller and her time would grow. And so that was a couple of years ago, and she's actually had another little guy, and I got to be there for the birth of him. I was kind of like a doula or whatever you want to call it, but I was her support person. And so I still see them all the time, and they're such a blessing.
You were the midwife?
Yes, yes. It was winter. I didn't have grass cutting to worry about, so I
Yeah.
became a midwife.
Okay, so how in the long have you been have have you had a clear bill of health?
So that all my testing results came like basically the last week of August.
Yeah.
And then I had a surgery in early September, which didn't, it was a minor surgery. I was literally back to work 3 days later.
Yeah.
And so it was easy.
Okay, so eh, so what's your plan? What
Oh,
is what's
yeah.
the personal and the business plan?
Well, I just said the other day that I need to rewrite my vivid vision, because it's almost coming to the end of that. And actually, a lot of the things that I put in the vision are, becoming more apparent and, either starting or have happened. But I definitely want to be there to support other women that have gone through this, or other people that have gone through cancer, because it's not, it's not an easy feat. Um,
Yeah.
you know, I'm pretty tough. Like you said, I have like many hats and I do many things. And so, I know it, like there was days where I couldn't, hardly get out of bed, and that's not normal for me. Right. And so, I want to be able to be some sort of support for other people.
Hmm. I guess you need to get there before the cancer takes its course
Yes.
so you can help them visualize.
Yes. hmm
So okay, so tell me more. So that's part of your vision. What else for
I
the business or your personal life?
I think growing the business, now that I'm at the point where I'm happy to basically scale it, that's what I'm seeing, adding another crew next year. But thinking more or less like a legacy, like when I'm not here, you know, is am I going to sell the business? Like, and thinking about those things, and just thinking about legacy at the end of the day.
Uh, okay, tell me more about that.
I don't know. This really puts like a perspective on life, right? Like where you're like thinking, I might like only have a 12% survival of 5 years from now. And you start to think what's really important. And so, um, starting to give back more. One of the greatest things that I did was, uh, my greatest accomplishments was putting a green roof on the Table Rock Center, which is right beside Niagara Falls. And I remember being really sad when I completed that because I was like, you just basically designed and built something beside Niagara Falls, which is one of the wonders of the world. And like, what are you going to do next? Right.
Mm,
And
yeah.
I was sad because I felt like I'd climbed the peak and that was going to be it for me. But then it ended up the next year, I was able to install a garden for a client that had ALS, and it was going to be her last year. And so the garden had to be like beautiful for her to enjoy it.
Yeah.
And then that topped that. And then now I have cancer, as victoring over that. So now I feel like there's something else. I'm not really sure what it is. I, you know, I haven't quite figured it out, but I know that it's going to be big.
Okay. You just have to, once you visualize it, it'll happen.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So you were telling me about all your personal hobbies and what your son is doing. Share a bit about those.
Yeah. So, my son Tovin this year started dirt kart racing,
Mm.
and I never really thought that I'd get into race cars or anything. I did grow up where my dad was into it. Right, we watched Daytona, all that kind of stuff. And then I got asked, "Hey, why don't you come, and see your kid?" Right. So I did, and even in cancer treatments, Tuesdays were usually the hardest days for me because it was day 4 after treatment, and that was usually the day I could hardly get out of bed. But I would do whatever I could to get to the races and watch him because he is one of those kids that it's just natural, and people can see it. And so it was fun to watch him, fun to cheer him on because he was, winning all the time. And he he made me melt because the day that I had surgery, he put breast cancer ribbon. He had a little tiny ribbon on his car, but he put a big, huge one because I was having my surgery that day. And
Yeah.
so I ended up going to have surgery 2 hours away, and we drove right from the hospital to the racetrack. We didn't even stop at home or anything, just so that I could watch him race. And so that's been really fun. And just seeing him with his passion, where he eats, sleeps, and breathes anything to do with cars. Like if you're in our house and Tobin's watching TV, he's watching something on YouTube that has to do with some sort of race. And then Ella, the youngest, she's been into gymnastics, and that's always been my passion. I actually did adult gymnastics when COVID hit, and they haven't introduced it back again, but I keep bugging them because once I get my full 100% strength back, I want to go back into gymnastics too. But I'm at the gym with her 3 days a week. And so I'm sleeping, and breathing gymnastics as well.
What about your personal hobbies?
Me? So usually gardening is my personal hobby, which it's fall now here. So that's kind of done for the season.
Yeah.
But I feel like I'm at that point in my life where just enjoying my kids and enjoying their hobbies has been kind of like a hobby for me, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. 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 So have you thought about getting a sim racer for your son?
No,
Now,
not yet.
they're probably not cheap, but
No.
the professional race car drivers, Max Verstappen and all those guys, they're all they're all learning and they continue to play on these sim racers. They've
Hmm.
gotten so realistic, and it could be a way uh, to continue to inspire your son and get him training that
Hmm.
that as I understand it actually translates to the track.
Yeah.
There was that whole movie about the guy who was the top sim racer and he made it into professional racing. Did your son see that movie?
No, is it a Netflix?
Ah, I watched it. Came out like 2 years ago.
Hmm.
He probably knows about it, and
Probably.
it takes place the sim racers in England. He's an English guy, young man. So it's a fun movie. It could be for you guys to watch together.
Hmm.
I I also love, I like to race, and so I love everything racing, and, I was thinking about getting a sim for me. It's a big commitment and you need space, but if I was your
Yeah.
son, gosh, I would love to have one. That would be the ultimate.
Well, he just started, he put out a firewood thing at the end of the road to sell firewood because that's how serious he is. So he's been chopping it himself. So maybe I'll have to show him the price tag and he'll have to start chopping more wood.
Yeah, there's different levels, but
Yeah.
they can get pricey for sure.
Yeah.
But if he's a kid of yours, he could definitely work and pay for it himself.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So any advice you would want to leave us with here on for those listening?
I would say, life's going to throw you challenges, but if you have a clear vision of where you want to be, things are going to get thrown at you. You're going to get attacked by things that you weren't expecting, but, keep looking towards that goal and don't give up because there's like plenty of things in the last 4 years that I could have easily just threw in the towel and said, this is way too much. I'm just going to go get a job somewhere else, work my 40 hours a week. But because I had that dream and that vision and I had it documented on paper, I knew that because I also shared that with other people, that I was going to let those people down, that I didn't persevere and continue moving forward.
Yeah. What advice would you give to somebody who's running a business your size, let's say? How do you prepare your business for that proverbial beer truck scenario where the owner might get hit by a beer truck, like you sort of did? What's your advice to someone on how to prepare for that?
I would say make sure you have systems in place, have your onboarding, have your team know what their expectations are on a weekly basis, daily basis, quarterly, set those goals, and then follow metrics because that's where I've been able to kind of step aside and not hover over people's shoulders because I'm just looking at what the metrics are and looking at like customer satisfaction, are the numbers coming in correctly, that kind of thing. And so having things set in place, it seems like a daunting task, but it's possible.
You said you also had your vision written down in writing and you handed that out. Was that part of this, or would that be part of this solution to get your employees prepared?
Yes. Basically it's something that I share with employees on an annual basis. Probably should share it more. But they all get a copy and I read through it with them. And so this year was extra special when I was able to like tell them that some of these things have happened already
Hmm.
and, that we're going to continue moving forward. And if I'm not in the office, because I'm getting treatment or whatever, that, you guys all have the torch and you have the tools and the roadmap to get us to where we need to be.
Hmm. So you had was it a 3-year vision?
Yes.
And so that, I guess you wrote that 3 years ago is what you're telling us.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
can we get a sneak peek in what your next vivid vision is going to say?
I don't know. I was scared writing it the first time. And now that I've kind of gone through it and pretty much most of it has come true, I would say it's got to scare me even more. So I don't know. I I haven't had enough time to actually sit and kind of even like filter or process the fact of the miracle of me, beating cancer. So
Yeah.
I'm still kind of processing that. And then I think once I kind of get over that, maybe I'll think about it more.
Will you ever get over it, or like, what do you mean?
I don't know. It's just it's just a hard thing to explain that where you were told something and you were like, I don't believe that, but you knew it was an impactful thing. That this might not be curable. You might just get palliative care. And then to hear, Kristi, we have great news. You're cancer free. Um, it's it didn't define me. Cancer didn't define me, but it's definitely changed me for good. And so it's gonna take, yeah, I might not ever, but I know I'll get to the point where I'll be like, okay, enough's enough. You beat that. It'll be like my Niagara Falls story where, a couple of days later I'll find something else that is bigger and better that I can tackle.
So it sounds like you're trying to figure out what you want to do. What's the vivid vision just for you personally? And then what
Yes.
role you want the business to play in that.
Yes. Hmm.
So that's going to take you some time to figure out.
Hmm.
Yeah, I could totally see that.
Yeah.
You got to kind of decide, right? So if I could do anything in the world, which is that statement we tell our kids to say, but you've sort of proven it. So you must be thinking, God, if I could do anything in the world, what do I want to do?
Hmm. Yeah.
Do I get to read it when you write it?
Yes.
Yay.
Promise.
Any final shout outs to the people in the peer group?
Yeah, I have an amazing peer group. They knew about my cancer diagnosis pretty much first because I was actually in Oregon at a peer group meeting, and I remember saying, "I wish that I could go like stay longer, but I have to go back because I have a test that I have to do." And I remember them all like learning about it and like saying, "We're going to follow up." And they did follow up, and they were like, the phone calls that I got from people, the encouragement that I got, just a
Yeah.
little, I'd get emoji texts, thinking about you.
Yeah.
They were definitely like a helping hand in this whole battle.
Yeah. I remember calling you a couple times. It sounds like not only can the group support, not only do our peer groups support you, but it's not just trivial, but it's even in the important things.
Yes, for sure. 100%.
Well, listen, I appreciate you sharing. I was almost scared to ask you because, it's such a big deal. And it's like you've kicked butt, but, just like you said, things, that those things kind of evolve and you have to get prepared for whatever else might happen. And so I was a little scared to even ask you to do this. And uh, I don't know somehow we were interacting and I just asked you, or I don't even remember, but I'm so glad that you said yes and that you shared this.
Thank you. I figured it's a story that's like too good just to keep a secret, right? And I
Yeah.
didn't go through all this just to keep it to myself.
Yeah. All right, Christy. Big, big hugs.
Thank you. You too.